now we'll go back to have Phil tell us what he was telling us before we stopped this to try to get everybody on YouTube in the family. Phil?
Cool. So if I click there on the shapes, you see all these shapes down here. And the whole concept with this is all of these shapes can be used, and I'll show you later on some of them how you can modify them. But for example, if you want an octagon, there's an octagon, and if you move it like this, you can get this way, or if I hit the shift key, then it gets locked and it's an octagon. And so you'll be able to see it come back and get that. So the beauty of this, now you'll notice the first time this happens, when I started a shape, it took me into this shape formatting tab, because there are different tabs up here at the top, and you should click on these to kind of understand them. I talked about the view tab up here. This is where you view and you add in the rulers and the guides. So if you want guidelines, you can put guidelines on, or you can take guidelines off. I'll show you that a little bit later. But the shape format will come up when you establish a shape. And these are tools that let you manipulate the shape. And I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time talking about these. Once you get in here, you can play with them. But over here, this is shape fill. So if you want to change the fill, you click on that and you can change the color of the fill. If you want to change the outline, you can change the color of the outline. So, you've got all of those capabilities there on any object. Like I said, if I right click on the object, it opens that right click. Remember, really important, opens this. You notice I've got a set of tools up here at the top that I can change the text and different things in the object. But I can also click down here and go to size and position. And that opens this little toolbar over here that lets me look at size. It also lets me look at things like the fill and the line. So you can look at the line here, and you notice this is a 1-point line, what's going around this on the outside. And if you come down here, I can put a compound on it that's a double compound like that. And if I make this 10-point width, so you got a nice border around it. So again, if you're trying to make an old sign, you can take one of these shapes and create a pattern that makes an old sign really easily. And again, this stuff isn't hard. I know everybody looks at it and you see lots of stuff happen. When you go in and play with this for an evening, you'll find it's not that hard. This comes up and you say, oh, shape fill. Oh, text fill. Oh, if I've got text, the same thing. How does it work? Click and you see format shape. Over here you get size. So this is the size of the shape. Again, I can lock the aspect ratio, and that way if I want to make it, over here in terms of back to the size, if I want to make it 3 inches, then it makes it completely 3 inches. So, and again, there are lots of shapes up here. There are basic shapes, rectangles, basic shapes, arrows, just about anything you could want in terms of shapes are here. And then, like I said before, the other thing I wanted to show you here, just make sure, is this idea that if you have another shape, so let's say, for example, I don't know, an octagon is probably not a great shape to use, but let's say, for example, a very simple thing you might want to do. Let's take a rectangle, and we take a rectangle, and let's say inside of the rectangle, we want to make it, we're going to make a safety placard. So we want to make it orange. That doesn't look like a very good orange. Gee, I don't really like any of the oranges that are there. Well, if you click down here on more fill colors, you get lots of choices. If the choices there are custom colors, and I'm going to show you how to use that in a future version. I'm going to show you how to get a tool that lets you pick the colors off of something on your screen and match them. And it's really great where if you've got something that you brought in that has a color border, you can match it with what's next to it. But you can also pick standard colors here. I'm going to make this bigger here so you guys can see it. And I can pick colors. So, if I'm doing, for example, let's say a road safety sign, I might want this orange here or this yellow here. Say this yellow here. So I do that, and now I've got the sign. And let's say I want to not have a border on the sign because it's printed yellow all the way to the edge. So I click on the sign, and then I want to go to the border. That's the outline. So I click on shape outline, And you'll notice I can pick all the colors, but right here it says no outline. So you notice now there's no outline on that box. But if I want to put a box inside of that, I can do something really interesting. So let's say I want a border around that. And it turns out that the sign I looked at, oh, you notice this background stuff and I keep clicking on it. Remember I told you how you get rid of that? How do you get rid of that? You go up here to the home page, you come over here and you click on layout and you click on blank, and that gets rid of that background. So you don't have to worry about it anymore. So remember, that's where you go figure out how to lay stuff out. So I want to put inside here, and what I did, I went and looked at it and I realized they had rounded corners. So one of the things, if you noticed up here in the tools, there's a rectangle with rounded corners. You'll be able to see these better on your machine. My resolution is set pretty high. So now I want to make that fit exactly in there and look good in terms of how it's going to work for this sign. So to do that, what do? I need to do a few things to it. The first thing is I really don't want any fill. So again, I come back up here and I look for it says shape fill, no fill. I want to make the line black and I want to make it a little thicker. And I can do that either with the line tool over here with the weight, or if I click on shape outline, notice down here it says weight, and I can pick the weight of the line. So now I want to make this line exactly fit inside this rectangle. So what's the easy way to do that? I look at this rectangle and I say, well, let's lock the aspect ratio on that rectangle. Let's make it 5 inches. And it's 5 inches there. And you notice when I did that, on the other dimension, it's 6.94. So I'm going to copy that. And the reason I'm going to copy that is I know that if I make the height 5, if I make the width that dimension, that little black box I drew will be exactly the same size, but more importantly, the same ratio dimensions as the yellow box. So I click on this. Now I click over here on size, and what I want to do is I want to make this 5 inches here. That's going to make it that way. And then I go in here and I copy in those numbers I copied from the other drawing, and now I'm going to paste those in. So on a computer, that's Control-C copies, Control-V paste. So you just learn those real quick. It's a great way to learn this. So I hit Control-V, and that puts in that 6 inches. And now when I hit the carriage reacher, oh, it didn't put it in. Oh, well, let me go back over here, 6.94. I must not have done it right. And now I'm going to come over here. See, even if you know what you're doing or think you know what you're doing, you make mistakes. There we go. So now these are exactly the same size, but what I can do is if I click up here and I hit the shift key, I can make this a little smaller. So now I can just bring it over here. And the easy way to do this, by the way, is you bring it right to the center and you center these. If you want to move it one way or the other, little quick tip, click on it and then hit the shift key, and it will just move along that axis one way or the other. And you notice it'll stop. It'll kind of hold itself right on the axis line. So now if I move this over and I put it on the axis line, what you notice, oh, hang on. I want to just make sure I get that one. And I can use the arrow key to move it over there. So you notice those are now exactly the same. And one of the things when you've got these irregular shapes like this, you won't see this on a square because you just manipulate the whole shape. This edge here, how do you change the dimension of that? Well, you notice there's a little tool right up here and you can go like that. So now all we got to do is put some text in there, but you'll notice that if I take this object here, right, this is my line. If I say arrange, send to back, now it's behind that. So again, I want to be able to arrange that and bring it to the front. So anyway, that was kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Just kind of, so I guess just some feedback from you guys is this kind of interesting to learn how to do this stuff, or does everybody kind of know how to do this already?
Well, I don't. I don't know about everybody else, but
No,
I'm
learning.
Phil,
I had to use it at work, so I'm familiar with it, but it is a powerful tool that comes free on most computers.
Yeah, it's a really good drawing tool. You look at it, and I'm show you how to do things like, you know, how you can create 1200 DPI images so that you can print them at really high resolution. So, you know,
Phil,
Practice makes perfect.
Jim?
So.
Jim, I think you can cancel me for the end of the month because Ed's just taken all my ammunition away from me.
No, he has not the way.
no, I
you-
haven't. No, this is a whole different kind of thing. It's
Oh,
You know,
it's
Nice
Inkscape.
try, Father.
It's exactly the same.
yeah, it's very much the same kind of thing, but it's just kind of learning those tools. And the thing that's so interesting about this is that when you kind of understand this concept of you're just putting objects on the screen, they give you objects. But the cool thing is, I'm going to show you in a little while that you can edit those objects and do just about anything you want with them. And, you know,
Phil, you know what I would show, Phil?
yes,
What I use it for, I'm a wizard with PowerPoint too, but what I would do is I would show them how to bring in, to make like billboards and signs.
yep,
I would bring in, you know, you can find some, I'll type in Google, for example, 1920, 1930 advertisements. Then I'll copy, paste them into PowerPoint. I'll size them. I'll put borders on them. I'll rust them. You know, I'll screw around with it. But you can,
Yep.
there's an infinite supply of signs on Google.
Yep.
And you bring them into PowerPoint. You know, you've seen some of my work. It's sprinkled all over the layout. They cost nothing.
right. Yeah, it's the same. It's the same thing. It's just those of us who know how to do it. And Larry, I'd love to have you do one of these, come in and do one as well. Because the same, they're actually, if you go back to those 10 things I put up earlier, one of them was the idea of how to do that. And one of the things is learning those tricks of how to do Boolean searches in a way that you find stuff. You know, there's kind of a set of techniques to finding things on Google sometimes. But you're right. You're absolutely right.
And see, it's these kinds of things, guys, that you all may know hands down. And it's just kind of second nature. You know, you want to look for something, you know exactly what button to press or how to do it. A lot of us, like me particularly, I have no idea what I'm doing.
I have a whole box. I can go reach for it. Whole box of things I've printed. I'll just bring images into PowerPoint and just fill it up with 1920, 1930 signs. And then I'll print them out. And then whenever I want to put up a sign, I just go in with scissors, cut one out and deal with it. But I have a whole box of them, you know,
Yep.
they cost nothing.
Yeah, well, what I'm going to do is show later is how you take them and you can do a high resolution image that when you print it out in a 6x4, which is less than 50 cents, about 45 cents out here. So probably most of the country is 35 cents to get a mad image printed out. And, you know, in O, that's a whole whack of signs. In HO, it's a whole bunch.
And
You know, so yeah. Anyway, Jim, let's throw it back to you. I think what you're hearing is that, you know, this is a great set of techniques. And it's not intended for the folks who know how to do it. It's intended for the folks that kind of don't know how to do it.